Okay, I want you to picture this for a second. You're standing outside, and you just feel this really gentle breeze on your face. It feels totally calm, right? Well, what if I told you that at this exact moment, directly above your head, there are massive, raging rivers of air just tearing across the sky at hundreds of miles per hour? We absolutely cannot see them, but these high-speed, invisible forces are literally shaping the entire world around us. So, in today's explainer, we're taking an incredible journey high up into the atmosphere to unpack the secrets of jet streams. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with number 1, invisible highways in heaven. Then 2, how jet streams work. 3, real-world impacts. And finally, 4, education, morality, and peace. All right, let's dive right into section 1, invisible highways in heaven, the unseen forces shaping our skies. So, what exactly are we talking about here? Basically, by definition, a jet stream is a super fast-moving air current way up high in the atmosphere that guides weather systems all around the globe. You can think of them literally like invisible highways in the sky. I mean, just like a normal highway dictates exactly where cars go and how fast they get there, jet streams dictate where massive storms go and how quickly they travel. They are basically the great steering wheels of our global weather. And what's truly fascinating is how our source material connects this hard scientific understanding of immense, unseen power to a perspective of deliberate design. The text actually references Psalm 104, verse 3, which says, "He makes the clouds his chariot and rides on the wings of the wind." The source uses this really vivid imagery to illustrate its viewpoint that the universe isn't just, random chaos, but rather that these powerful, invisible forces operating way above us are part of a deliberately designed system sustaining our Earth. Moving on to section 2, how jet streams work. Let's get into the mechanics of the sky. First off, we really need to understand exactly where all this is happening. 5 to 9. That is the number of miles straight up into the atmosphere where jet streams actually live. To put that into perspective for a second, if you have ever flown in a commercial airplane and looked out the window at cruising altitude, you are right in the middle of jet stream territory. It is a completely different world up there, miles above even the tallest mountains on Earth. Now, while there are a few of these high-altitude rivers wrapping around the globe, there are 2 major ones that completely run the show for us here in North America. We've got the polar jet stream, which sits further up north, and the subtropical jet stream, which hangs out further south. Literally, every single time you check the weather app on your phone and see some giant storm system rolling across the map, you are watching the direct result of these 2 specific jet streams pushing the weather around. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how they're born in the first place. It is all about a clash of extremes. So, step 1, you have this freezing cold polar air pushing down from the Arctic, and it meets hot, warm tropical air pushing up from the equator. Step 2, when these 2 drastically different temperatures collide, it creates a massive pressure difference in the atmosphere. And since nature absolutely loves balance, this severe temperature difference generates an enormous amount of kinetic energy. Step 3, that unleashed energy creates incredibly fast-moving winds that get whipped around the rotating Earth, flowing continuously from west to east. Now here is where it gets really interesting. Seasonal shifts turn these streams into delivery systems for very, very different realities. The jet stream doesn't just sit in a perfectly straight line, It waves, it wobbles. When the polar jet stream dips south during the winter, it acts like a giant slide, pulling freezing Arctic air all the way down with it. But in the summer, when it shifts north, it traps hot air beneath it, bringing these prolonged periods of dry, warm weather. So it's the exact same invisible force, just shifting its position and entirely changing the environment down below. Let's look at section 3, real-world jet stream impacts. This is how these unseen winds actually change our lives. I've got a fun little mini mystery for you. Imagine you get on an airplane in California, and you're heading east to New York. The pilot gets on the intercom and says the flight's going to take 5.5 hours. But suddenly, you touch down in New York almost an entire hour early. You didn't leave early, right? And the plane obviously didn't get some sudden mid-air engine upgrade. So why exactly did that flight from California to New York arrive so early?
The answer, of course, is the jet stream. That plane caught a massive tailwind. Because jet streams always flow from west to east, planes flying eastward can literally surf these invisible highways to get to their destinations much, much faster. But the impacts go way beyond just saving some time on a flight. Remember when that devastating winter storm brought freezing temperatures and totally shut down the power grid all the way down in Texas? Well, that was an extreme dip in the polar jet stream. It was an Arctic blast delivered right to the southern US. Conversely, when that exact same jet stream gets pushed too far north in the summer and just gets stuck there, it leaves the southern states trapped under high pressure, resulting in severe summer droughts. So a single invisible wind can speed up a plane, freeze an entire state, or cause a massive drought. Which brings us to Section 4, Education, Morality, and Peace, Navigating the Unseen Forces of Life. The source material draws a really profound parallel right here. It suggests that just as unseen jet streams guide the physical weather, unseen godly guidance shapes moral choices in life. The text argues that, hey, while we might not physically see it with our eyes, individuals can rely on spiritual guidance to navigate through the storms of life, much in the same way meteorologists rely on the reality of the jet stream to understand the atmosphere. According to this perspective, God's guidance moves with precision, shaping a path even when the full picture is totally unseen. And this brings us to a foundational philosophy presented in the HeroesMart Academy Godly Learners series, which is, education without morality will ultimately hurt. The text basically argues that being incredibly smart and highly educated really loses its value if a person continues to make bad, immoral choices that ultimately cause pain to themselves and to others. It posits that knowledge is kind of like a powerful jet plane, but morality is that necessary invisible highway ensuring a safe arrival at the right destination. The curriculum argues that uncoupling what we know from how we ought to live actually makes education destructive rather than helpful. The source text concludes by saying that intertwining learning with godly wisdom brings true peace. It references Romans 8, verses 6 and 7, highlighting this promise of profound peace of mind to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. It leaves us with a really provocative parallel to think about. If massive, unseen physical forces like jet streams dictate the atmosphere above us, what invisible philosophical or moral forces are we allowing to guide the trajectory of our own lives? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and keep looking up.